Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another Training Tuesday. James gave me the very long topic here, which we're going to try to shorten into something digestible of creating a reusable show file. How do we make a template file? How do we make a file that we can take with us everywhere? How do we make our settings? Things like that. So the first thing in these reusable show files or something that you can take with you is going to be your user settings. So your user settings file, we talk about this in the classes often. They're the settings in the desk, basically from programmer to playback. So these 5 tabs, which would be an entire day if we went through each one. But it's setting up all of these settings to get the desk to behave how you want. In addition to that, it stores your layout views, so all of your different views in the desk. It stores your macros, so things like my autosave macro here and my master tap would come with me. It saves your playback options. So in here, if we go to view options, view defaults, all of these tabs here, as well as your favorites, those are all part of your user settings file. So taking some time going in, adjusting those to your preference, or even taking an old show that you've taken the time to fumble through them and kind of figure out the way you want it. And you're like, I really like the way the desk behaved during that show. I was comfortable with how it worked. Loading that old show file up and coming in and saving your settings is important. We can do that by going to setup and coming up top here to save settings. We can also load settings or import settings. And what we're going to be looking for is a .set file. So I think I have some here in an old folder. Yeah, so here's a few oddball SCT files. So you can load those and it will load all of those things up in one go. You don't have to spend every show going through each of these tabs, tweaking your settings. Oh, geez, you know what? I need my intensity effects to work, so I need to come in here and tell effects can subtract. And I do like auto enter. I don't like auto enter. I can adjust that. Now you load that settings file and off you go. Once you have that, the idea of what to keep in a template show file is going to vary drastically depending on your show. If you're doing a lot of rock and roll, you're doing a lot of festivals and things like that, it's fairly straightforward like this show. So here we have our downstage fixtures, our spots, our washes, our beams, side lights, pars, LED strobes. We have a little bit of everything here. And forgive me for how crowded this is, but this show was built for a stadium console, so I had to kind of scrunch it so everything went back online. But I have all of my pieces of my rig here, each truss, odds and evens, and whether you choose to use group cues or not, it's worth maintaining and hanging on to those groups. So build the elements of your show that you know you're going to need. If you're going to do festivals and you're going to do rock and roll stuff, build the key pieces. If you have your own floor package, again, build out the key pieces of that. My recommendation, if you're going to be doing something that is going to require a reusable show, or is going to require you to use that show over and over in different venues or different rigs, would be to use all of the newer group-based things. So first things first, we're going to come in here, we're going to go setup, we're going to go queue storage, and we're going to make sure we have our group cues on. Now we won't go too in depth on group cues. We have videos on that, and again, we'd be here all day. But pick the mode which suits you the best and try to stick to that group queue concept. So many things in our show files now are group centric. They deal with groups. So we have obviously the groups themselves, and these groups even can be based upon themselves. We've talked in the past about things like linked groups, the ability to come in here and say pair odd, highlight those so you guys can see them, and record that as a group, and then tap odd even again and record that as a group. We have the little L in the corner. What that means is these groups will adapt to whatever changes in the main group. That allows you to get your odds, your evens, your fours, your centers ins, your centers outs, all your different maths that helps you make the show look good, put together in 2 seconds. All you do is update this group in the right order, or whichever parent group you choose to use, and off you go. When it comes to cues, we've seen that we have group cues. This entire show is actually group cues. This is just had to mess around, show that I have. If I can find the page button. There we go. But in here, we have all of our timings, which we'll get to what those do in a minute. But you'll see it's group 8. That's the Nitro 510Cs. They're referencing a soft palette. What that means is anything that I dump into this Nitro group, whatever I want to call it, I can rename it, I can move it, I can do whatever I need to do. But whatever I dump in there, this handle for the Nitros is automatically going to work and going to do its job. Right? So having the group-based things makes a huge, huge, huge difference. We've expanded that beyond just queues, obviously, and the linked groups, but we also have it involved in effects now. And effects are also palettes, so I would strongly recommend you use those as well. So if you have to adapt those effects to something else, but any of these effects here, which translate to the ones on the execute screen here, if we click on them and find our circle here, view item, view queue, view effects, you see that this is not referencing any fixtures, it's referencing a group. So group 51, 68, and 88, so spot, beam, wash, right? So again, as I adapt my groups, as I change my groups, as I bring things in and out of the show, everything will adapt and change. We do this for our masters. We do it for speed master. Older style speed masters can be group centric. So intensity masters are group centric. So if you have an intensity master, let's go and make one real fast. If I take my downstage washes, go to page here, get to our fresh page. If I go to my downstage washes, I don't touch anything else. I hit record and I touch a playback. It's going to make that a grandmaster, intensity master. You see the IM in the corner for that group. So if we view the options, we'll see it's preset this up. It's a group master for group number 2. What that means is if I get a different set of front lights, I get more front lights, I get less front lights, all I have to do, same as group cues and group effects, is update this one group. And this master will adopt any of its new fixtures or less fixtures, or I can take a fixture out. Say I need one light as a special that's not part of the front wash that night. I can just take that light out of this group and it's no longer part of this master. It's no longer part of the downstage wash queue. It's no longer part of any effects I may have on there. And it's now its own unique fixture. Now, once you have this all programmed, taking the show to a new venue, you're still going to do the traditional morph and clone, whatever you need to do to get more or less fixtures. So if we need to come in here and we need to take our Vipers here that are an extended, and we need to switch those to something else, we can go to choose head, survey, a pro. Let's say we have the Maverick MK2s, nice trusty fixture that we use in all of these. So the MK2 spot, maybe they're in basic. So we've got it selected. It's up here in our header, Maverick MK2 spot basic. We'll find our Vipers, go up top here, and we'll simply say morph head. Once we've morphed those, you'll see that they'll reappear up here somewhere. There they are. There's our Mavericks. And because everything is group based, assuming that I've programmed it right, we go back to our main page, turn our spots on. See that my 2 handles for odd and even work exactly as I would expect. If we go to the execute screen and we want to put a circle on them, my circle effect works exactly as I would expect. If I want to bring my zoom into it, my zoom works exactly as everything. If we program meticulously, we make sure that everything has its right place, everything references the palette, so on. Everything we create here is going to work exactly as we expect. Now, again, because we use the group-based things, and it would take a little bit for me to set up the viz to do this, if I needed more of those, or even less of those. Let's say, let's get rid of one whole truss. Maybe I just don't have truss number 3 today. So let's turn that off. Truss number 3 is the far upstage. It's those guys there. If I go into patch and we have those viewed, we say selected, these fixtures, if I want to, I can just straight up remove them. Wouldn't recommend that. I would unpatch them personally, or if they're not there, I wouldn't even worry about them because, again, they're not going to show up because they're not there. But now again, our odds and our evens work. Our execute screen, all of our effects work. Everything's as it should be for us to still run our show. And then, of course, it goes the other way as well. Again, it would take a little bit of time for me to set up in the Viz, but you can add even more fixtures if we want to double the number of spots that we have. So if we go to patch, come to our Vipers, coming a group queues demo again, but that's all right. We'll clone these guys. Palettes and queues. Maybe we split the effects. Done. So now I've just doubled the number of fixtures that are in my show, but I've also doubled the number of fixtures that are in this group. So we do some pretty cool stuff. Getting all that together, being organized is really, really important. There's other things you can do. I have some other shows where I've done things like macroed all of my color changes to a soft palette region here. That way I don't even have to think about it. It's not really calling colors in the queue. It's calling them based off of a soft palette. That made things extremely flexible before group queues was really a thing. These days, group queues kind of taken over that role. But it's still very useful because it's calling soft palettes. And it doesn't matter what fixtures I put in here. As long as they have the soft palette, they work. So packaging all of that up and building yourself a file that has all of the things you want, that has all of your effects, color palettes, your color pickers, your position pickers, in different forms and versions for different consoles. You know, this show file, the version of this that I've sent out to James to hopefully become a demo file someday, is built for a 250 or a 500, where it has a page for each. So if I roll into a venue with a smaller console, I can put the smaller show in or put the smaller page up that condenses these playbacks down so that I still have my 3 Speedmasters and everything's in its place. Right now I'm in a show for a 500, and this is something to consider, is if I come to view playbacks, I have a bunch of playbacks that I don't get to access. I can't access my Speedmasters. I can't access my position and my color timings because this was built for a 500. So consider what you're working on, what kind of consoles you think you're going to see. If you're going out on a bunch of fly dates and you're flying with an MQ-70, you don't want to build your show laid out perfectly for a 500 because you're going to end up moving things around and you're going to have things programmed in the wrong spot. So plan accordingly. Keep it simple. When you go to build your template file, you know, don't build yourself something that's a pain to maintain. With group queues and group-based things, less groups is more because you have to maintain them. That's why things like the linked groups comes in really handy. Try to use those and make them work for you rather than you having to maintain all of these groups. If you do it right, mostly you're only going to need to maintain the main groups for the, and that saves you a ton of time and lets you, again, expand and contract your rig very easily. So, in short, get your settings in order, get everything right, get everything where you want it. Make sure the desk is easy for you to boot up and start working right away. Build yourself a bunch of group-based things. If you're using group queues, that's even better. And build yourself just the core elements of the show. Some basic things that you're going to need. You know you're going to need positions. You know you're going to need colors. You know you're probably going to need some effects, right? These are things that you know you're going to end up wanting. So take that time, build those pieces, keep that show in your pocket, and in theory, you have a template file that you could roll into any venue, any event, and go to work on. Again, everybody's shows and everybody's work is a little different, so adapt to what you're doing. If you're doing a lot of corporate one-offs, you know, you can simplify this whole rock and roll side of things because you're generally just dealing with a cover band and a handful of lights that you. So shorten this up, and maybe more for you, it's more important to have timings and things like that queued up, and maybe some macros to key in your timings, or maybe you want just the simple busking shortcuts to use as a programming tool. Put that in your show, keep it there. Don't make yourself have to build that every single time. I think that's all I got on this. Let's see what the comments say. YouTube is frighteningly quiet today. Nobody there. Where's everybody? Luke, you got anybody in Facebook world? No questions anywhere. That either means I put everybody to sleep or I did a really good job. But we'll go with the latter. All right. Well, if you guys don't have any questions, if you come up with any questions after this session, let us know. You can always reach us at www.camsyslighting.com in the US or www.camsys.co.uk, pretty much anywhere else. Let us know how you guys are doing your template files. And remember, everybody you ask and everybody you work with is going to do something in this realm a little differently. Everybody has their comfort zone. So look at how everybody else does it. Find your own way. There's no one way to do this because events vary so drastically. Thank you everybody for your time. We'll see you again hopefully next Tuesday. Short but good information. That was kind of the point. This could be a very long topic, but yeah, we're gonna try not to make it an entire day class on that. If you want to look up the elements of this, we have done videos on group cues, on group effects, on masters. Question: is there any way to save the viz attachments? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by saving the viz attachments? You talking about having the fixtures attached to the truss? Is that what we're talking about? Oh, reply there. Hit us up and ask us that question. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking there. As far as this show file goes, yes, you can pester James Harrison about making this a demo file because he's had the file for a little while. He just hasn't put it in. And then you can absolutely have this file. Well, not this file. This is a messier older version, but there is a version of this that is queued up and available. So everybody spam James and maybe he'll make it a demo file. Cool. Well, thank you everybody. Have a good day, and we'll see you again soon.